"This is your name, isn't it?" Samantha said, pointing her finger. I followed the direction of her finger and looked down. I felt a jolt of unpleasant sweat breaking out. There, reflected, was my younger face and name. My name is Stephen. I'm in my 40s, working in the product development department of a food manufacturer. However, for several years now, I've become what you might call a sidelined employee. It's not that I'm not assigned any work, but I hardly ever get anything of responsibility. I'm not really close with anyone in my department either, so no one comes to chat unless it's for work-related matters. But at this age, without any special qualifications as a high school graduate, I've resigned myself to this position, albeit feeling a sense of emptiness. A little change came when there was a personnel transfer at the fiscal year change, bringing new talent into our workplace. My name is Samantha. I was in the sales department until last fiscal year, but I've always loved eating and cooking, so I'm thrilled to be here. I look forward to working with you all. She seemed to be in her early 30s. Energetic and beautiful. She had the appearance and aura of someone capable at her job. I was just an ordinary employee, but she came in as a chief and seemed to become my supervisor. Having a younger boss didn't really change anything. I was still at the bottom of the pecking order. It's difficult for me to communicate, and it's unlikely that someone with bright prospects would want to get involved with me. That's what I thought as I absent-mindedly watched Samantha introducing herself along with the transfer orders. But when we actually started working, perhaps due to her background in sales, she had a good approach, treated me equally without discrimination, and assigned me tasks. Even though I was an outlier. "Stephen, could you please make the adjustments to this project as decided in the meeting?" "Sure, I'll take care of it." "Thank you, I appreciate it." "Is there something?" "Oh, just thank you in advance." However, there was something that concerned me. Not always, but I felt like Samantha was intently observing my face, my demeanor. As if she wanted to say something, or confirm something. Am I finally going to be fired for being a salary thief? I've tried not to cause any problems, but... well, it's already a problem, isn't it? After all, Samantha is an excellent person. She might be thinking of reporting me as a cost-cutting measure, considering me an incompetent employee and cutting my employment. Well, but it can't be helped. Resignedly abandoning my thoughts, I started on the valuable task I had been entrusted with. A few days later, there was an announcement about a product idea contest within the company, open to all departments. The goal was to gather frank opinions combining the strengths of each department to come up with good plans. Of course, our department was also going to participate. After all, it's our job to work out the details of the product after the planning phase. Let's give it our all for this project. For starters, I've bought hamburgers from a famous store. Eat to your heart's content and use it as inspiration. Yay! Thank you. Everyone, please fill out a questionnaire about your thoughts on this hamburgers and your ideas. Let's do our best. For our first meeting, which also served as lunch, we got to eat hamburgers from a well-known store, thanks to our boss's arrangement. It really is different. So delicious. No, this isn't it. This isn't all that impressive. It's not bad, but there's definitely a difference in taste compared to hamburgers from a famous store. I looked around, but it seemed like my colleagues didn't sense anything of the sort. I wondered if there was something wrong with my taste, but I do have knowledge and experience with food and ingredients. I trusted my own palate. With the questionnaire, I could submit my opinion without having to announce it in front of everyone. Being honest might be the better approach. Opportunities like this are rare for someone in their 40s who was mid-career hired like me. It might be better for my evaluation to honestly write that it felt different. If it's Samantha, she might have been watching me. Deciding to go through with it, I quietly filled out the questionnaire amidst my noisy colleagues. The following week, while I was slowly progressing through my work, a notification from the internal chat system flashed. It was from Samantha. She wanted to talk about the questionnaire and asked me to come to a separate room in the afternoon, according to the business email. I nervously sent a confirmation reply and headed to the designated meeting room at the specified time. When I knocked and opened the door, Samantha was already sitting there, waiting. "Please, have a seat here." Yes. I took a seat as directed. After a few seconds of silence, Samantha showed me a clear file. Inside it was a questionnaire I had filled out. Was there a problem? No, there wasn't. I'm sorry, I was testing you. I hadn't been sure until now, so I didn't say anything, but I think I know who you really are. My real identity. Weren't you previously a head chef at a restaurant in a hotel in New York, French cuisine, right? You must be mistaken. This is your name, isn't it? Cutting off my words, Samantha said that. Then, from behind the questionnaire in the clear file, Samantha pulled out a copy of a page from some newspaper or magazine. I felt a sudden surge of uncomfortable sweat. It was an article from many years ago, a small piece about a restaurant. There, a younger me was featured with my name included. You found quite an old piece, didn't you? I had been a chef specializing in French cuisine in my previous job. After graduating high school, I immediately went to France to train in the culinary arts. While attending a culinary school was an option, I wanted to learn in the homeland of cuisine as soon as possible. Having honed my skills in France and with connections from the owner of my training location, I was able to get involved in various roles at a famous hotel restaurant upon returning to America. As a chef of modern French cuisine aimed at locals while also being authentic, I think I achieved a certain level of success. I wasn't a celebrity, and it's not a world where people would be eager to know, so I'm not sure if I could be called famous, but I do remember being featured in magazines and on TV. I also remember those articles and TV programs praising me a lot. So it is you, isn't it? This? Yes. With such skills and having achieved success at a young age, why did you quit and come to this company? It's a strange question, but surely you'd have more status, fame, and money, and it'd be more enjoyable than the work you're doing here, right? Do you want to hear it? I might not be able to explain it well, but... Samantha seemed slightly shaken for a moment, but then she nodded. This is my perspective, my story. You don't have to believe it, but... I started to recount. Back when I was working at the restaurant, being promoted to head chef, I was ecstatic. I vowed to work even harder, inspiring my team, striving every day. But working day in, day out, there was this sous chef named Richard, who seemed to have something against me. He was older than me and had come into this field after graduating from university. He often mocked me for diving straight into this career after high school. There are such people, aren't there? But it's true that I only graduated high school, and there's a gap between me and those who worked hard to pass exams, went to university, and studied further. It was unpleasant being belittled, though. I tried to keep the conversation light. But Samantha looked solemn, making me doubt if I managed to keep the tone upbeat. Anyway, it would have been fine if it ended there, but maybe because I didn't pay him much attention, he took a different approach. Behind my back, he spread false rumors among the employees about me. Unfounded rumors like I was two-timing my girlfriend and left her pregnant, or that I was evading debts or embezzling funds from the restaurant. Although these were baseless, it seemed like the staff believed them. Samantha was speechless. It was rare to see her, always calm and rational, looking pale. As I spoke, I observed her and thought, so she can make such expressions too. Because of that, everyone turned against me. Richard was respected for his skills, and looking back, it's understandable. I might have been too desperate, failing to communicate with the staff properly. I didn't realize it, but that undercurrent was there every day until it finally exploded. I paused for a moment. It wasn't something I wanted to remember, but I wanted to tell it properly. After calming myself a bit, I detailed the sequence of events that day to Samantha. On the day of a private dining event for a company. Eager for the important event, I entered the kitchen to find it empty. No one was there, from the staff to the part-timers. Normally, a few would be there before me, preparing or learning. But no one came, no matter how long I waited. It turned out that the staff, believing Richard's words, had collectively boycotted. I tried desperately to contact them, but no one, from the part-timers to the full-time employees, answered their phones or emails. But time was ticking away. With no preparations, I wasn't sure if I could manage the meals for all the guests alone. That's just irresponsible. It showed how much they believed I was a terrible person. They weren't bad people themselves. I hadn't talked much about this before. Not talking meant there were no third-party opinions, whether in defense or criticism. Maybe that's why, hearing Samantha getting angry on my behalf, I felt a bit relieved. Anyway, I failed to deliver the meals on that important day and was abandoned by the staff. I was crushed. I thought it was impossible to continue. That's why I quit that job and gave up my career as a chef. Despite being confident in my hard work, this was the result. I fell into mistrust of people and depression. It was then. There was a regular customer who remembered my face and name and was kind to me. This person said, "I like the food you make with so much effort. If you're looking for a place, why don't you work with us? In any way, I want to eat your cooking," and offered me a lifeline. That was the company's president at the time, Mr. Thompson. Having no experience in corporate life, I initially declined, but Mr. Thompson left the decision open, saying, "I'm not asking for an immediate answer. Contact me once you've made up your mind. I'll be waiting whenever you're ready." Eventually, needing work and deciding not to continue as a chef, I gratefully accepted the offer. That was almost 10 years ago. But I was naive. Still distrustful of people, I couldn't fully trust my colleagues. I was always somewhat afraid of people's voices. Unfamiliar with ordinary corporate life, I became isolated. Unable to fit in, I couldn't speak up or fully utilize my skills in the product development department, struggling to commit seriously up to this point. That's what happened. I ended up telling you about how I was picked up by the company. Well, there might have been faults on my part too, and this might sound like an excuse. So, that's what happened. I shouldn't have asked so casually. I'm sorry. I don't think you're in the wrong. When Samantha heard the story, she looked down, but I quickly got her to raise her face. It's an old story, and I've recovered enough to be able to talk about it. But for Samantha, that wasn't the end of it. But if I hadn't heard it, I might not have been able to handle it. About this project. Project? What does my story have to do with the project? It does. The main issue in your story. A person named Richard. He is now the head chef at your previous restaurant. I heard from a former colleague in the sales department that Richard will be supervising this project for connections from the sales department. My heart contracts unpleasantly. My spine turns cold. I still harbor something akin to trauma. But your palate hasn't faded. You're not losing in skills or experience. It might be tough, but please, join this project and lend us your strength. Samantha was desperate. She had always been calm, but this was a face I had never seen before. But she quickly composed herself and pleaded, "Please, I'm begging you. Why would you go that far? That job was years ago. I think I've eaten your cooking with my parents. It was the first French restaurant they took me to. My parents loved France and went there often for their honeymoon and other trips. It's a taste of family memories. I remember how delicious it was and how it made us smile. It would be a waste to let it decline here. I feel the same as Mr. Thompson. I want to eat your cooking again. Samantha looked up and gazed directly at me. It wasn't just any French cuisine. It was authentic and made thoughtfully for people, even for someone like me trying it for the first time. I want many others to know about it. Samantha. Someone likes my cooking. That was something I hadn't heard since my days as a chef. And with that, my old feelings resurfaced. Customers who ate and praised the food. Customers who thanked me. Customers who said they wanted to come back. There are people who believe in me. I might be able to trust this person too. I understand. I'll do my best to meet your expectations. Yes. No excuses needed. I'll put my all into making someone happy with my cooking. With that resolution, I changed my attitude and threw myself into the internal project contest from that day. And I changed. People are still scary, and so are my colleagues. But because I wanted to try hard, I actively took on work. I started to speak my opinions clearly. It was rare for me to lead meetings or present, but I made sure to do it confidently. Stephen, you've changed, for the better. Is that so? You look more lively than before. I didn't know you could work like this. Isn't that a bit rude? See, you can even say things like that now. You've changed, you've changed. I started to communicate with my colleagues more. I researched to create product samples. Even after going home, I studied dishes for the product, bought ingredients, and ate them as meals every time. I distributed notes of what I tried to my department and received opinions. This is tastier than yesterday. Yeah, but I might prefer a stronger flavor. But it's a hamburger project, right? If we're also focusing on health. Samantha's and my seriousness seemed to spread throughout the department. Gradually, my colleagues and superiors became more invested, and before we knew it, the department was fully committed to the project. Even though I hadn't been serious about cooking lately, I started to remember how fun it was to cook like I used to. I never knew work could be this fun. It felt like my skills were finally being fully utilized and growing significantly. So that's what's happening in the development department. Yes. You want to win this project, don't you? Yes, of course. Then do as I say. Everything, exactly as I say. Yes. I was just working hard, unaware of the dubious dealings in the sales department. On the day of the contest, the only projects left for the presentation were ours and one from the sales department. Excuse me. As I entered the room, the first thing I saw was Richard, who had aged a bit. I felt a chill down my spine and had trouble breathing for a moment, but then Samantha and my colleagues came in and pushed me to my seat. Stay calm, we're with you. You've worked hard to get here. No need to be so nervous. Let's take it easy. Thank you. And then the presentation began. Theirs was first. Typical of the sales department, their presentation was flashy, with impressive photos and explanations. Richard supervised a presentation of luxurious dishes. It was an overwhelming presentation, but I wasn't alone. It wasn't just about luxury. We have done everything we could. Then it was our turn. Thank you for this opportunity. The theme of our project is convenient, delicious, and healthy. We had practiced the presentation a lot. Samantha helped me revise the materials to make them more appealing, and we came up with unique ideas from the development department. I worried my mind might go blank, but the presentation went smoothly. We handed out samples, and it was over. The room erupted in applause, and it was time for questions. I answered various questions, but then the issue came up. "Stephen, that was a good presentation, very promising, but I heard that during your previous job as a chef, you irresponsibly missed an important dinner, leaving Richard and the staff to clean up the mess. Is that true? If it is, it's hard to trust you and your presentation." The room stirred. I felt a cold sensation running down my spine again. Richard was smirking. He must be lying as easily as breathing, just like before. Was history repeating itself? I take a breath, ignoring the loud thumping of my heart, and speak calmly. "I'm not alone. It's true that there was a time I couldn't provide a dinner service, but it wasn't because I simply didn't show up. I took it upon myself to handle the situation that day. I was the only one able to come to work, and I determined that I couldn't manage both cooking and serving in time, so I apologized to the client and directed them to a comparable restaurant. It was everyone else who didn't show up for work, not me. It might be impolite to contact a client from that day, but I remember who it was, so I can provide the name later for you to verify. Everyone else but you." Damn. Samantha and my colleagues backed me up. Yes, he always takes his cooking and customers seriously. Stephen wouldn't do such a thing. I vouch for him. One of the judges looked bewildered, glancing between Richard and me. Then, seeing the other judges silent, he backed down. "I see." And then it was time for the decision. The results were in. All 5 judges voted for our idea, and our project won. We did it. All right, all right, all right. We were chosen. We won. We really worked hard, all of us. My colleagues erupted into high fives with Samantha and me. It was a bit embarrassing, but we couldn't hide our joy and praised each other. However, Richard wasn't pleased. Perhaps he felt his pride was hurt. Suddenly, Richard started making a loud fuss. "This is rigged." "That's not true." "Yes, it is. I come here in the midst of my regular job, and I was just used. This is utterly unpleasant." Richard crossed his arms and fidgeted, seemingly growing more agitated. The atmosphere in the room grew tense. Then, a firm voice filled the room, commanding silence. "Be quiet. You're embarrassing yourself. Do you think you're so important to complain about a unanimous decision? I believe I'm more significant than that resigned chef. Is that why you've always been comfortable with lying? I know that you spread lies about Stephen, forcing him to resign. It was only because Stephen didn't want to pursue the matter that you weren't investigated, but I consider what you did nearly criminal." I couldn't believe my ears. I hadn't noticed until now. "Mr. Thompson." Richard was asking a guy sitting next to him who the man was, and the guy taught him that the man was the chairman of this company. "Chairman, you never mentioned that." This person was the former president of the company. He was the regular customer who had once taken me in. I didn't recognize him immediately because of his different attire, my nerves, and the overwhelming memories, along with his slightly aged face. I was looking forward to eating Stephen's cooking again. I didn't want to make you nervous, so I came incognito. "The current president, my son, isn't here. The hamburgers was delicious." Mr. Thompson turned his wrinkled face towards me and smiled. Behind him, Richard's face gradually turned pale and stiffened. He was someone who cared about his social status, so he must have been terrified by his current blunder. "I still go to the restaurant, you know. It's a connection from the previous owner. Stephen would have definitely remembered. He remembered all the regulars like me, every one of us, but you didn't remember. No, you probably don't remember any of your customers' faces. You're not really engaging with your customers at all. Sure, your food is delicious, but that's all there is to it. I don't see any effort made specifically for the customers. That's why it lacks charm." Mr. Thompson slowly approached Richard. Despite being shorter and having a gentler demeanor, Richard stepped back. We've never properly talked, so I was somewhat hopeful. But from now on, I won't ask you to supervise our products. It'd be troubling if our customers started avoiding us. Richard turned pale and looked down, unable to say anything. Then, Mr. Thompson faced me. I'm really glad I could taste your cooking again. Please continue to showcase your skills. Mr. Thompson, thank you, but this wasn't just my doing. It was made passable by Samantha, my colleagues, and everyone in the department through various trials and discussions. So, it's thanks to everyone, I said proudly. Looking back, Samantha and the others were smiling warmly. Our project became an unprecedented hit for the company, and we received praise from the higher-ups. Then, a direct offer from Mr. Thompson came. How about running a restaurant as a company's flagship shop? I'm glad to see you vibrant again. I'd like you to be the chef. Will you do it, Stephen? I was a bit nervous. Could I walk down that path again after a failure? But everyone in the department supported me. Right, I'm not alone. So, I happily accepted the offer. We rented the first floor of a building near the headquarters, and the restaurant successfully had its pre-opening. Of course, I invited Mr. Thompson and everyone from the product development department. Seeing me in my chef's attire instead of a suit, everyone greeted me with cheers. As I served a variety of warm dishes, everyone enjoyed their meal with relish. It really suits you better, this look. I think it's quite cool. Thank you. Actually, I had a magazine clipping of you from back then. I was a fan. It's surprising to see you like this again. You seem more distinguished now, and it suits you even better. A fan, really? Oh. Whether Samantha's blush was from the wine or something else was unclear. The atmosphere turned a bit strange, but my department colleagues were there to watch over and keep the spirits high. Mr. Thompson also watched me while eating my cooking with a kind face. It seems happiness doesn't peak here. There's still more to come.